systems. We have seen that there are 5 operating system classes which are evolved over a period of time. They are batch processing, multi-programming, time sharing, real-time, and distributed systems. So in the next topics, we are going to discuss each of these operating systems in detail. So in the today's class, I'm planning to complete the batch processing system as well as multi-programming systems. So first, we start with the batch processing operating system. So as we discussed in the earlier class, this was the first operating system which was evolved in 1960s. Before that, there was no concept of operating system. Okay, this is the first class of operating system introduced in the world. Okay, here batch means it is a group of programs with similar requirements. Batch is nothing but a group of jobs. Many times we use words jobs, programs, processes, one and all same. Okay, so batch is nothing but group of jobs or group of programs with similar requirements. So for example, all the C programs, they can be treated as one batch. All the Fortran programs, they can be treated as one batch. Java programs as one batch, and so on. In generally, the programs with similar requirements, they are considered as a batch in the batch processing systems. And this group of programs belonging to the batch, they are executed one by one without human intervention. The operator, he used to make batch of the programs. Once the batch is formed, this batch of programs, they are submitted to the batch processing operating system. Here, if you look at the diagram, it is visible. Say job 1, job 2, up to job n. So this indicates start of the batch, and this indicates end of the batch. A batch of programs, they are fed to the operating system, and the operating system task was to execute these jobs one by one in sequence without human intervention. Okay, if you look at the memory part of this batch processing operating system, so memory, it was divided into 2 parts, system area and user area. So system area, it was devoted for batch processing operating system. The operating system also requires some memory space for its storage, right? The operating system is stored in system area, and the current job of the batch was stored in the user area. So user area is that part of the memory where the user programs or user jobs, they are stored by the operating system. So these jobs, they are executed one by one without human intervention. Okay, this was the concept adopted in case of batch processing operating system. But one thing you have to understand is, remember, it was possible to execute only one program at a time. It was possible to store only one job or one program in the memory at a time, and only after completion of that program, it was possible to take the next job or next program. So this was like the limitation of batch processing operating system. Okay, next, if we consider the user service, that is, we can call it as turnaround time. So total time required for execution of the programs in the batch include 3 time periods. They are time until batch is formed. The total time required for execution of the batch includes totally 3 time periods. They are time until batch is formed. Say for example, at T0, assume that job is submitted. A job is submitted at the time T0, but operating system may take some time, say up to T1, for formation of the batch. So this time, the time between T0 and T1 can be referred to as time until the batch is formed. Then between the time T2 and T3, we consider it as time required for execution of the jobs in that batch. So second slot, that is time spent in execution of all the jobs of the batch. Then after completing the jobs in a batch, finally the results produced by each of these jobs, they are printed or they are handed over to the users. So like this, the turnaround time in case of batch processing operating system, it include 3 time periods. They are time until the batch is formed, then time required for execution of the batch, then time required for printing and sorting of the results belonging to different jobs. So this we call it as turnaround time in case of batch processing operating system. Okay, if we consider batch processing operating system, it was supposed to carry out 3 functions. Remember, many of the times the operating system is referred to as monitor. Sometimes it is also called as kernel. Sometimes it is also referred to as supervisor. One and all same. Okay. Here the author says batch monitor functions. It's nothing but the batch processing operating system's functions. Okay. So first function was scheduling. Scheduling, already we have discussed, it is the process of selecting the program to be executed next. So when you have multiple programs, the operating system has to decide which program is to be executed next. So as in the batch processing operating system, it was possible to store only one job at a time. We can say that the scheduling type was non-preemptive scheduling. So non-preemptive scheduling means only one program is executed till its completion. Only after completion of that first program, the second program is taken for execution. Okay. This kind of scheduling we call it as non-preemptive scheduling. So in case of non-preemptive scheduling, once the program is chosen for execution, it is executed till its completion. It will not be stopped or it will not be suspended at any moment of time. Okay. Next, we have memory management function. So in case of batch processing system, this concept was adopted for memory management. Just look at this diagram. So that the available memory space, that is main memory of the computer, it was divided into 2 parts. That is system area and user area. As the name itself indicates, the user programs, they are stored in user area, and the system area, it is used for storing operating system programs. System area is meant for storing operating system programs. User area, it was used for storing the programs which are to be executed by the users. So system area, it is once again divided into 2 parts. They are resident batch of the monitor and transient area. The programs which are frequently required by the operating system, they are stored in resident part of the memory, and the programs which are not frequently required, they are stored in transient area of the memory. Please try to understand, students. The memory in case of batch processing system, it was mainly divided into 2 parts, system area and user area. The system area, it was used for storing operating system programs. User area was used for storing the user programs or job of the users. Okay. The system area, again, it is divided into 2 parts, the resident part and transient part. The programs which are frequently required for the operating system, they are stored in resident part of the memory, and the programs which are not frequently required, they are stored in transient part of the memory. Okay, then third function carried out by batch processing system was sharing and protection. As in batch processing system, it was possible to store only one job at a time. There was no question of sharing. and there was no question of protection. So actually this sharing and protection, they come into the picture when you want to execute multiple programs at a time. As in batch monitor program, or as in batch processing system, it was possible to execute only one program or only one job at a time. There was no issue of sharing and protection of the job or interference of the programs, we can say. Okay, students, can you think what is the disadvantage of batch processing systems? Can anyone?
So we execute only one program at a time.
Yes, very good. The main limitation of batch processing system was it was possible to execute only one job at a time. But please try to understand, in the computer there exist lot of resources. Particularly CPU, it is one of the very important resource. And along with CPU, you'll be having memory, input output devices, and so on. Okay, assume that you have a job. Suppose if that job requests for input output device, that time the CPU will be idle. Okay, so to overcome this, the next class of operating system was developed, which is named as multi-programming systems. The second class of operating system is called as multi-programming systems, and this class of operating system was developed in early 1970s. So as the name itself indicates, in case of multi-programming systems, it is possible to store multiple programs at a time. As the name itself indicates, it is possible to store multiple programs at a time. And the main goal of multi-programming system is to achieve concurrent utilization of CPU and input-output devices. We want to see that both CPU and IO devices, they must be busy all the time so that we can exploit the concurrent utilization of all the resources in the computer. Okay, here we have the concept of this multi-programming systems. Just go through the diagram. Okay, at the beginning part of the memory, the multi-programming kernel is stored. That is, the operating system is stored. As I told you, here it is possible to store multiple programs. Assume that you have three programs, program 1, 2, and 3. They are stored in the memory. Okay. Assume that the program 2 is under execution. Means the CPU is executing the instructions of program 2. And now, if program 2 starts execution of the instructions, and if any of the instruction or any of the instruction of the program 2, if it requests for IO device, what can be done? We can allow second program to carry out input-output operation, and CPU can be allocated to the next program. If you look at the first diagram, the first program, it is performing input-output operation. It is using IO device. Second program, it is using CPU for its execution. Suppose if the second program makes a request for IO device, what we can do is the program 2 can be allocated with IO device. Now you look at the second diagram, figure B. Program 2 can be allowed to use input-output device, and CPU can be allocated for program 3. So now if you look at the second diagram, that is figure B, the program 1 and 2, they are using input-output devices. Or program 3 is using CPU. So like this, it is possible to achieve concurrent utilization of IO device and CPU in case of multi-programming systems. Students, I'm going to summarize the concept once again. So in case of multi-programming systems, as the name itself indicates, it is possible to store multiple programs at a time. And the execution of the program, CPU starts execution of one of the program, and when that program makes a request for input-output operation, That program is allowed to use input-output device. However, CPU is allocated for next program. The advantage is that we can achieve concurrent utilization of CPU and I/O devices in case of multi-programming systems. Okay, now let us see, to achieve this, what are the things we require? Okay, we want to achieve no doubt multi-programming concept. We want to have concurrent utilization of CPU and input-output devices. But however, to achieve this, we require some architectural support for multi-programming. We require some hardware support. Okay, what are the things we require? We require first of all DMA, then we require memory protection, then we require privileged mode of CPU. So these are the three important features which are expected for multi-programming systems. Okay, we'll discuss this one by one. First, we have DMA. So actually DMA stands for Direct Memory Access. So actually it is a hardware part. It is something like we have an IC with 8257 number. So actually this DMA IC, or it is sometimes also called as DMA controller, it allows data transfer between the memory and I/O device without intervention of CPU. Please try to understand. DMA, it is a device which allows the data transfer between input-output device and memory without intervention of CPU. Without involvement of CPU, it is possible to carry out data transfer between the I/O device and the memory by using DMA. It is very much required in case of multi-programming systems, because if one of the program is using CPU, we want to see that the other program should make use of input-output operation. So to support this, we must require DMA, that is Direct Memory Access. Then second feature what we expect is memory protection. The operating system should ensure that there should not be any interference between the programs, because here we are going to store multiple programs. We want to see that a program does not access or destroy the contents of the other programs. The idea is very simple. When multiple programs are stored in the memory, the operating system should see that a program should not destroy the contents of other program, or there should not be any interference between the execution of the programs. The next feature, we have privileged mode of CPU. So actually privileged mode is one more new feature. So actually here the operating system instructions will be different, user program instructions will be different. While executing operating system instructions, some kind of priority is required, so that always the operating system instructions, they are executed with higher priority as compared to the user program instructions. Here, if you look at the explanation, you will find the same thing. Certain instructions called privileged instructions can be performed only when the CPU is in privileged mode. So when some of the important instructions are to be executed by the operating system, that time the CPU will be switched to privileged mode. During that time, the CPU is allowed to execute only operating system instructions or privileged instructions. Okay, these are the three important features we require to implement multi-programming systems. What are those? Direct memory access, which allows data transfer between input-output device and memory without CPU involvement. Second one is memory protection. It is to ensure that a program does not access or destroy the contents of other programs. Third one is privileged mode of CPU. So this mode of CPU is required to execute some critical instructions of the operating system. While executing these critical instructions of the operating system, the CPU will be switched to privileged mode, and then the execution of these instructions is carried out. Okay, this is all about the architectural support required for multi-programming systems. Then we have important functions performed by multi-programming operating system. So mainly the multi-programming system, it was supposed to carry out scheduling. Scheduling, already we have discussed the process of deciding the program to be executed next. Okay, can anyone tell whether scheduling will be preemptive or non-preemptive in case of multi-programming systems? Whether scheduling in multi-programming systems should be preemptive or non-preemptive?
Preemptive, sir.
Yes. Very good. It must be preemptive, because if a program is using CPU, in between if it requires input-output device, then we must preempt CPU from that program, and that CPU should be allocated to the next program. That's why, remember, the multi-programming system will employ preemptive scheduling. Okay. Then next, we have memory management. Then third one is input-output device management. Okay. So these are the three important functions that are supposed to be performed by multi-programming operating system. Okay. Okay, next we have some of the important concepts and techniques used by multi-programming systems. Okay, students, we have totally two important concepts, not two, I can say three important concepts. One is degree of multi-programming, then mixing of the programs, then third one is related to scheduling, that is priority based and preemptive scheduling. We'll discuss these concepts one by one. First, we have degree of multi-programming. So actually degree of multi-programming is nothing but the number of programs that can be stored simultaneously in the memory at any moment of time. So degree of multi-programming is the total number of programs that can be stored in memory simultaneously. Okay. Degree of programming is number of programs that can be stored in the memory by the operating system at any moment of time. Okay, next we have the program mixing. Okay, so in generally, whatever the programs we write, they can be classified into two types. They are CPU-bound programs and IO-bound programs. CPU-bound program is one which will have lot of instructions requiring CPU, and it includes very few instructions which will make use of input-output operations. CPU-bound program is one which will have lot of instructions require CPU, and very few instructions they may require use of input-output devices. On the other hand, IO-bound programs are those which will have lot of input-output operations, but very few instructions requiring CPU. Okay. So in generally, when we submit programs to the multi-programming system, it used to classify the programs as CPU-bound programs and IO-bound programs, so that these CPU-bound programs and IO-bound programs, they are properly mixed. They are properly mixed to achieve concurrent utilization of both CPU and IO devices. Can you think what happens if you have only CPU-bound programs? Can we achieve concurrent utilization? If you have only CPU-bound programs, can we achieve concurrent utilization of CPU and IO device?
No, sir.
Not possible, because all the programs, they require CPU, they start requesting for CPU, right? That's why The multi-programming operating system, it used to classify the programs into CPU-bound and IO-bound programs, and it will maintain a proper mixing of CPU-bound and IO-bound programs. Okay. Then the third key concept or technique we have is priority-based and preemptive scheduling. So in case of multi-programming operating system, every program is assigned with some priority. And no doubt, as we discussed, the scheduling type will be a preemptive scheduling type. Okay. The multi-programming system always it has to employ the preemptive scheduling type. Okay. Okay, just I will read out the lines given by the authors. Every program is assigned a priority. The CPU is always allocated to the program having highest priority. Okay. A low priority program executing on the CPU is preempted if a high priority program wish to use the CPU. The concept is very simple. Here, every program is assigned with priority when a low priority program is under execution, and at the same time, if high priority program is scheduled, or if it is submitted, at that time, the low priority program is suspended